You're watching Morning at NTV.
Right, first off, thank you for making us the #1 breakfast show in the country. Our next conversation, the Ministry of Education and Sports is in advanced stages of developing a policy guideline on early childhood education, ECE, co-opting pre-primary education into the existing system. A 2019 report by Twaweza has continued to reflect that those who attend pre-primary education perform better, both in reading and numeracy, at least by primary 2 compared to the rest of the learners. The worst case scenario is that by the age of 14, a minority of the learners have achieved primary 2 reading competence. Today we have the author of the report, Dr. Mary Greti Nakabugo. Well, she joins me right now in studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Romeo. Thanks for inviting me.
It's amazing to have you join us in light of your report that showed that levels of literacy and numeracy have dropped in the country owing to the fact that most of our children are not attending pre-primary, that is preschool, kindergarten. So my question, how will preschool, kindergarten help my niece or nephew get prepared for primary?
Thank you very much for asking. It's true, yes, we have seen a drop of literacy and numeracy competences since we did our last national assessment in 2015. And ECD, or attendance of pre-primary, is one of the factors which we see can have a great influence on learning. As you rightly said, actually children who had at least 2 years of pre-primary education had quite a big advantage, both in literacy and numeracy. So the purpose of ECD or preschool, and here mainly talking about children between the age of 3 and 5, such that we are preparing them to enter the official primary education system, which starts at the age of 6. It's really, first of all, to prepare them to socially interact with others. How do they relate with others? But they also get some foundations actually in numeracy and literacy. For example, knowing the concept of print, even knowing how to engage with letters, issues of shapes in numeracy, and so on. So that is really, and also actually growing them in terms of how to play with others and so on. So that stage is not to teach them intellectual or academic knowledge. It's really to get them prepared for primary education. So that is why I wouldn't actually encourage parents because of the scarcity of ECD facilities or services, very many parents, especially in rural areas, start taking children of P3, P4, even P5, age 3, age 4, age 5 to primary 1, but they're not yet ready for that age. So kindergarten is really supposed to prepare them for that.
And
we are seeing that those who have had that preparation for at least 2 years, they are really at an advantage.
So you're saying that kindergarten won't focus on the intellectual bit, but the cognitive bit. So you're the cognitive bit, you're actually assessing the cognitive abilities of this child. What are they good at? Is it mathematics? Is it English? Is it singing?
It's actually on just all three, but as a preparation. You're talking about the cognitive, but you're also talking about the social aspect, but also maybe the psychomotor, because at that age they are manipulating a lot of things, and what you're building in them at that moment are the social and emotional skills.
Amazing, Dr. Nakabugo. I started school at the age of 4, that is baby class, 5 middle, 6 top class, and I was 7 years old by primary 1. I remember my peers laughing. Yes, I remember my peers laughing at me, even the people in the community saying, "You're too old to be in primary 1 at the age of 7. Why doesn't your father help you skip maybe to primary 4 because you're brilliant?" I was brilliant at that age because I was already helping my peers write letters up country already, because I was already good when it came to comprehension of English, reading and writing, numeracy. I was just super. But then my father said, if you let a child skip a stage, that is the beginning of trouble. How true is that statement?
I think, we do have an education system that is very carefully planned. So they know that for a child to actually completely grow, they need, at least at the moment, they need to join primary school at the age of 6. By the time I joined primary the official age was 7, so probably it was a bit like you. So and every year there is a set of learning that is actually planned for them at that age. So once you skip, it's not a good thing. So it's like also taking children, like I was saying, taking them to primary 1 when they are not ready. It's the same thing. So if they make you skip from P1, primary 1 to primary 3, then unless there's some preparation that has been done for you by the school to catch up on what you may have lost for the 2 years, then it's a disadvantage.
So Dr. Nakabugo, early childhood learning did help me as Romeo Busiku, but how will early childhood education help my niece right there at home and the nephew in their later years?
That's what I told you. So first of all, it is getting this child prepared, but also instilling in them the love for school, because schooling or a school context is so different from what you interact with at home. So what it is giving you are the foundations of the school system, but not taking you too deeply into the academic kind of work that is planned for children of primary 1 up to primary 6. So it is preparing you in terms of engaging with others, interacting with others. And at that time, I mean, I'm not saying that social and emotional learning is learned only at school, because it really starts right from home. But in nursery school or in pre-primary, again, the foundations are built for the child to get ready to engage in a primary sector.
Funny thing would happen by primary 1. Actually, we were there 7 years old, but would have kids as young as 4 years old sit in the same class with us, just doing nothing with their bottles of milk, just sitting in there. So comprehension was a major problem for them because they were still young. They hadn't gone through the whole system yet. So what are the other ramifications of having your child skip a stage?
Because they're not yet ready for that stage. So
besides comprehension,
comprehension, I think they are not ready for anything at that level. Because if you look at our education system, you have what we call curriculum or syllabus. There is what is prepared for children of primary 1, primary 2, primary 3, up to primary 7. So if you are meant to skip one class, it means you have not acquired the learning competences that are intended for that level. So it's not only just for reading and comprehension, but for all subjects for the primary school curriculum at that level, you're actually at a disadvantage. You've missed.
Your report is crystal clear, but why has pre-primary education been left to the private sector?
That is a policy issue. That is a policy issue. I mean, for us as practitioners of civil society and citizens of Uganda, of course, we would love for government to take it over completely. But before they do, I mean, if they don't yet have capacity to do that, there's also a lot that communities can also do. At the moment, we have about 3 types of pre-primary education provisions. So you have the private investors for whom it is a business, who have started their nursery schools, they're providing for that. You have also communities which have started their own kindergarten or nursery schools, but you also have there's an organization called LABE, which is piloting, I think in partnership with UNICEF, what they call child to child. Again, it's a community kind of model of preschool where you have children who are in primary 5 or 6 or 7 who are now organized in a community to help their young ones in primary 1 or 2, or even those who have not yet gone to school, to enable them acquire some of those basic skills. So you have those ones. So at the moment, before government takes it over, and at the moment we are not saying government is not doing anything in terms of the training of teachers for the pre-primary sector, they're doing that. We do have guidelines and frameworks, and now the issue of the policy is on the table. So before they say that this is now universal ECD, how can we empower the communities to actually support that level? But also in the interim, for us, we are advocating for a system where government can maybe give subsidy to the private investors, such that the fees are reduced for the ordinary citizens to be able to afford.
But now as it is, the fees are really, really, really up in
They're
the sky.
up, and it's all 100%. It's in the private
So,
sector.
with
Yeah.
your report in mind, are the huge sums charged by nursery schools justified?
It depends. You know, once something is private, you really have no control over it. Yes, probably, because even in primary and secondary schools, private government is almost not as effective in managing the school structure for those ones. And for these ones where government doesn't have even its facilities, the preschool, it's very difficult to actually manage. So it's up to the parents in most cases to determine where to take their children. But I hope it can be really guided. And some of them are really, really, really very high. That is why,
Really,
up to
really
now,
high.
yes, that
as
is why
high
we
as
have
800,000, Dr. Nakabugo.
even more for some.
Some students at
Even
Makerere
more.
University are paying just that
Yeah,
for their course,
yeah.
and then you have a nursery kid right there also paying 800K.
That is why we
Wow.
haven't even attained 70% of enrollment in ECD. I mean, 70% of our children join. Actually, I mean, 70% or even more of our children join primary one without ever having access to ECD. Again, because of the cost. And that is why we are advocating this community kind of run ECDs, but also a subsidy in the future, if it's possible, for government to really subsidize those ones and make them affordable to the ordinary people. That is until before the government takes it over.
So in your opinion, is what we are paying right now for nursery worth it? Because children who go through nursery are better off. So is it worth it, what we are paying
Yes,
now?
it actually it is, because our findings are showing that irrespective of the cost or of the nature of that ECD facility, once a child has accessed it for at least 2 years, they're much more advantaged than somebody who has never accessed it. So it's actually worth it, but it doesn't mean that we should overcharge the parents, that we should make it affordable to a parent in Kampala as well as to a parent in Luka or Namayingo.
So as we wrap up, let's talk about the role of the parent when it comes to early childhood education. My own mother taught me basic numeracy skills when it comes to mathematics. She would tell me, Romeo, go around the neighborhood looking for some straws, used straws. So I'd bring the straws back at home and she would help me when it comes to mathematics. 6 plus 6 will tell you get 6 straws from this side, 6 straws from the other side, count them, and then add them together. It will give you 12.
Yeah.
So early childhood development, when it came to kindergarten, at least from baby class to top class, before things became tougher in primary one, I had to do it myself. She would help me so much. So what is the role of the parent when it comes to early childhood development?
Extremely, I mean, it's actually a home is the first school for every child. I mean, as we talk about now, the adults who are in the system, many of us never accessed ECD. I went straight to primary one. I was age 7.
But before that, your parents helped
you
you
with...
with...
I knew how to read a book. I knew how to count. I mean, and also the other values that children learn, values and skills that they learn at home. So as a home is the first really home. Even when... I mean, a home is the first school. Even when ECD, maybe in future, not probably in my lifetime, but I hope it will be in my lifetime, when ECD is universal for every child, it's provided by government. Even when that happens, it doesn't take away the roles of the parents, of the homes. It's the first school. But now times have changed. Parents are not at home. They leave when children are sleeping, they come back when children are sleeping. So what do you do in such a situation? Actually, the ECD structures or facilities kind of fill that gap. Yeah, so...
Very, very, very interesting conversation, Dr. Nakabugo. You are very well versed with this conversation, and I like that. But as we wrap up, you've also hinted, like in your report, it has hinted that numeracy our students are grappling, literacy our students are grappling. So right now, as we wrap up, what can we do to ensure that our children learn?
I think it's really, let us all get focused on their learning. It's not enough at all to just be comfortable that our children are in school, but they're not learning. Let us all play our role. You talked about the home, you talked about the school, you talk about the government itself. One of the findings that we found accounting for these poor learning outcomes is also the absence of children in school. So yes, there has been an improvement, for example, In 2015, when we did our last assessment, about 34% of the children were always absent from school. Now we're talking about 23%, which is still a big percentage. So let us, and that is the role that can be played by school and parents to ensure that every single day children are at school, but also schools to play their role that when the children are at school, the teachers are in class teaching. Every single day you have 21% of teachers who are not at school teaching. But even those who are in school, many of them are just simply seated in class, either marking books or doing nothing.
Dr. Mary Nakabugo, thank you very much for having made the time to speak to NTV. Her conversation right here, she's actually telling us that parents play a very, very humongous and pivotal role when it comes to preschool. That is ECE, early childhood education. You, the parent, you play a big role. Even before you send your child to kindergarten, do something. Make sure that at least your child can read at least something. Add from 1 to 100, read A, B, C, D up to Z. At least that is your role as the parent before you send this child to school, because you're preparing them, and that has been the conversation. Off to you, Mala.